Everyone who's streaming during this session. It's so good to have you streamers here with us. Quick announcement. We have started to accumulate some lost and found items. All right, water bottle, glasses, okay. No. Oh. Still looking for the owner of the glasses, friends. Before we begin our keynote, we do have another quick greeting that we'd like to share from the Mayor of Columbus.
Whether you're visiting for the first time or returning to a favorite spot, we hope you take time to explore everything that Dublin has to offer. From our vibrant downtown, where the charm of historic Dublin meets the modern energy of Bridge Park, to our more than 60 pristine and beautiful parks. Every corner of Dublin reflects our commitment to quality, our commitment to connection, and a standard of living that is second to none. With more than 150 miles of shared use paths, we are Ohio's only runner and bicycle-friendly city. Dublin is consistently ranked among the best places to live in the nation, with 99% of our residents saying it is a great place to call home. We are proud to be a city that is both innovative and inviting. We hope that you feel the warmth, the energy, and the pride of our community. Thank you for choosing Dublin, and enjoy your stay.
Friends, this afternoon we are deeply grateful to Brad Cameron and Terry Michelle of Denver for their sponsorship of this session. We are also very grateful to have a keynoter with the unique ability to speak to our community at this particular moment in time. To introduce our speaker, we welcome Carolyn Shalhoub, a leader in Dignity Detroit, the Women of Dignity, the Community Services Committee, and an ambassador for dignity in many other circles. Carolyn, thank you for your leadership.
Do I have to hold this? I guess so. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Carolyn Shalhoub from Dignity Detroit, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Sister Nancy Sylvester, who will speak on celebrating the courage to be who we are, becoming hope for the future. Sister Nancy Sylvester is a member of the Sisters Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, better known as the IHM Sisters, based in Monroe, Michigan. It would not be a surprise if several of you had been educated by these sisters in your past. A few? Okay. She is also the founder and president of the Institute for Communal Contemplation and Dialogue, or ICCD. Sister Nancy is committed to the transforming power of communal contemplation in one's life and the life of the community. She believes it invites the shifts in consciousness necessary to embrace our own evolutionary journey and engage critical issues facing us in ways that foster dialogue, relationships, compassion, and justice, so needed in this particular time in our history. Sister Nancy is a well-known speaker, writer, and process facilitator, offering programs nationally and internationally. She has written for a number of publications. Currently, she writes monthly for the Global Sisters Report, part of the National Catholic Reporter. She's contributed to several books and has recently authored the book Journey, Faith in an Entangled World, and reissued Crucible for Change, Engaging Impasse Through Communal Contemplation and Dialogue. You will be able to purchase these books at the conference or arrange to have them sent to you later. Sister Nancy is past president of the Leadership Council of Women Religious and past vice president of her religious congregation. You may know her from her time of service in Network, a national social justice lobby that brought us the nuns on the bus, among other efforts. Many of us saw that. Prior to coming to Network, Sister Nancy taught secondary education in and around Detroit, Michigan. Sister Nancy has served on many boards and has been an advisor on the United States Bishops' International Policy Committee. We at Dignity Detroit call her our neighbor, as she lives in a house on the property of the former Marygrove College, where we have our biweekly Mass in the chapel on campus, which she attends with us. She was part of our 50th anniversary celebration in 2024, and indeed that's the picture taken at that anniversary, and it includes a beautiful piece of fabric that I believe it was Dayton made for us for our anniversary. Is that correct? Okay. It is only through the courageous support of the IHM sisters that Dignity Detroit is still able to celebrate liturgy in this chapel after a very unfortunate impasse with our former Archbishop. Thank God, former. We don't know much about the new one yet, but we have hope. The theme of the conference is, We Are God's People, Here, Now, Always. Sister Nancy will share her thoughts and contemplative practice with us, and we will have a chance to respond. I present to you Sister Nancy Sylvester. I hope you don't have to hold that. It's heavy.
I'm not going to do this one.
God be in your head. God be in your heart. God be in your mind. God be in your soul. God be in our eyes, so that we may see God's face. God be in your lips. God be in your life. God be in your head. God be in your heart. God be in your mind. God be in your soul. God be in our eyes, so that we may see God's face. God be on your lips. God be in your life.
Thank you very much. And to begin with, first of all, can you all hear me up, not see me up here, but is my voice loud enough here? Should we go up? Okay, great. Well, I was a little worried coming at 1:45 to 3 o'clock after a big meal, but you just proved to me that you'll stay awake. And I was going to give you the wager, if I fall asleep, you can fall asleep. If I don't fall asleep, you don't fall asleep. So let's hope that will be it. Well, listen, really, it is such a privilege to be here, and I've so enjoyed meeting so many of you in these last day and a half. And it truly is amazing having been founded in, I think, 1969, right, the National Dignity, and have continued courageously to claim your identity within the Catholic Church and as part of the Catholic tradition, even in the midst of such great suffering, pushback, struggle, rejection, and challenge. And although we have seen some change in the decades that have came since '69, and we really have a change in consciousness, I do believe, and behavior, we are facing into a very difficult time again, and where the fear of difference is raising its ugly head and is going to become another major impasse, I think, for many of us. And that's why I'm so pleased that the workshops that you had talked about you being an image of God, how divine love lives within you, and how you can keep resilient and care for yourself. This belief in who you are and how divine love lives within you takes courage and needs to be nurtured to continue to become your best self, your divine self, so as to become hope for the future. So that's why, of the many things I thought I could talk about, I landed on this. Celebrating courage to be who we are and becoming hope for the future. And I hope I can contribute to you, to us, doing that for the sake of our future, for the sake of making the good news of the gospel live again. So I want to begin with a song. It's a song I'm hoping most of you remember. It became an anthem of sorts for the movement, and it's a little out of date in parts, but I think you'll remember Holly Near's song, Singing for Our Lives. Yeah. So if you would stand, and Ron and the choir is going to help us. We cut one verse and I reversed one verse, so you might need to look at the words on the slides. So Ron, take it over. We are gentle and loving. We are justice seeking. We are a land of many colors. We are gay and straight. We are all together, and we are singing for our lives. This song has been sung by millions of people offering a vision of who we really are, a vision of how we are all connected and that our differences do not divide us, but rather enrich us. For me, the first time I sang this song was back in the late 70s, and it was yeah, I'm that older. It was a time when people were still looking around trying to say, is she lesbian, is she straight, is she gay, is she, and everybody was out there watching. And I remember there was so much judgment and blame and suspicion, and I thought, I wanted to stand with and be one with my straight and gay sisters and brothers until all of us would have the same rights and the same dignity. However, through these years, to claim one's identity within the LGBTQIA community in the face of discrimination, of legal recriminations because of outdated laws, of feelings of shame and rejection by family members and by the church you love took real courage. And it was the courage to be true to your experience of self and of your experience of God, divine mystery. I'm not going to use the word God often in this talk because it's a word that conjures up too many different images, and so I'll use divine mystery or divine love, so when you hear that, you'll understand it. As you face these impossible impasses in your life. Although I do not pretend to have suffered from the same kind of injustices you have, I believe being a feminist and choosing to stay within the Catholic Church, we share some common elements of our identity into the journey where we are today. Rejection by the dominant culture, feeling powerlessness to change situations, experiencing misunderstanding by the people you love and serve, and experiencing a different kind of faith than the one we were taught. And so I want to use my own life a bit, my journey faith, to share why I believe being faithful to one's experience of self and of divine mystery is critical to be able to face our future, which will be filled with greater impasses, I believe, places of powerlessness and struggle. Because it's our truest, healthiest selves need to be and can be nourished and strengthened through the transforming power of contemplation. And finally, to envision ourselves becoming hope for the world by being cosmic sentries. And I'll explain that a little bit later in the talk. I'm borrowing from Cynthia Bourgeau. Carolyn mentioned the book that I wrote about journey faith in an entangled world. And because the time is short today, if you're interested in what I'm saying, that's a great place to start, because it's based on the belief that everything that happens in our lives is interconnected, or using the quantum physics word, entangled. We are all connected. We have to live now, influenced by our past, and allowing the future to emerge, connected to the most recent insights of psychology, science, theology, the evolution of consciousness. I believe those of us here in this room who continue faithful to a religious tradition that doesn't embrace us fully are essential bearers of hope in the emergence of the next stage of evolution. So that's sort of the context, I hope, that I'm coming and to share with you today. So first, being faithful to one's experience of self, but not yet, divine mystery, takes courage and is essential to be able to face our future. So a little bit of a context. All right. I was born on the south side of Chicago. Yeah, very good, thank you. And as I'm hearing those of us who were there now just talk about Pope Bob, just Pope Bob. But I was quite a traditional Catholic. Now my family wasn't, but I was terribly devout. I loved everything about the church. The smell of incense, the candles lit when the church was dark, the silence, the liturgical feasts when I could spend more time in church. I lived across the street. I went to every parish mission, and for those of you who don't know this, missionary priests would come and talk, and they talk like a week, from all over the world. And then I found every missal I could find. Now, those of you who remember missals, there was Pius X, there was St. Joseph, there was Marian, there was Marino. I mean, you couldn't get enough of them. And rosaries. And so the rosaries, I just loved all the prayers I could. I believed everything the church taught, and I was able to defend it if asked. Everything, okay. So I love God and wanted to be perfect. And if you were a Catholic girl in the 1960s, mid-60s, and you wanted that, really there was only one place to go, which was to the convent. So that was my desires, loving God and being perfect. And so religious life, if some of you might recall, was considered to be higher vocation than marriage. And I suspect it's because there was no sex in it, so probably that. But when I entered the Sister Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, who taught me in grade school, I was quite surprised. I was looking forward to changing my name, wearing a habit for the rest of my life, always living with somebody else in a community and doing great work, but praying. What I didn't count on was the Second Vatican Council. I know some of you might be young, you might not remember, it was finished in 1965. And my congregation was already implementing it, which I had no idea. So here I came. If the council opened the windows for the church, it blew the doors off the hinges for religious life. I found myself dismayed by the visible changes of the traditional religious life and seriously challenged by what we were learning in our theology, philosophy, social study classes, which already were beginning to reflect some of the church documents. It was a new theology in the making. And some of you may remember some of that little red book that said Vatican Documents of the Second Vatican Council. Okay. But take a look at this. I mean, the primacy of conscience, priesthood of believers. We were beginning to say Catholicism wasn't the only one religion. I mean, it was mind-boggling. And so it didn't make sense to me, because that's not quite the faith that I was growing up with when I was little. But there was an attraction to the intellectual stimulus of it, but I really felt I didn't belong. And so in the second year novitiate, or maybe it was the first, I wrote a letter to our general superior saying, I love the congregation, et cetera, but I don't think I belong. I just don't. And she wrote like a beautiful letter. I kept it all these years. And she said nice things first. And then she said, I don't think you should make this decision in February in Michigan. So, yeah, well, I was a little insulted, that I'd be did she think I was making my whole decision on the weather? However, I did stay. There's a lesson in this, the first realization. I realized that if I was losing my faith, then I would have to rely on the faith of the other young women in my class. So that was my initial experience. If my faith evolved beyond what I learned, I needed a community to hold me. And the community gave me courage to stay and change. And so I believe what it is for yourselves is as you evolved into knowing that what the church was teaching about your sexuality was not fitting, you needed a community to hold you and give you courage to keep going. And that's what I believe Dignity, for many of you, became, that religious community within which you journey. Another significant experience took place my first year of teaching. Now, I was about 4 years older than these girls, right? Teaching faith in today's world to seniors. So as I stood before this class, and I can still remember it, I began to speak. It was like all my words froze outside of my body, out here, like sort of like a comic book, and I observed myself saying things I no longer believed in. It was startling, and as I knew I needed to reflect on what was it telling me, I felt I was in a crisis and I was losing my faith. How can I stay a Catholic sister and not believe in God the Father? Okay, so my congregation was offering directed retreats at that time during Holy Week. I'm a first-year teacher, but I asked could I go. So I even got off, they said yes, beautiful, generous. And during that retreat, I met daily with the director. At one point in the retreat, I realized something was shifting in me. And so I woke early in the next morning and walked the shore of Lake Erie, where the retreat center was located. And alone on the stretch of the beach, and the sun was awakening, the words of the prophet Hosea came to me, and saying, yes, well, I've abandoned you. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. Now, that wasn't planned. That really wasn't part of it, but there it was. There it was. I have abandoned you. Oh my God. And you are mine. But then I felt these words. Know you have the gift of faith, but for you, the face of God will be ever changing. And I really knew I had to give up at that. You ever hear the phrase gift of the fathers, faith of the fathers? It was that realization. I had to give up the faith of the fathers, but I had faith. From that experience, I knew not simply intellectually, but with my mind, heart, body, and soul, that I had the gift of faith and that my understanding and experience of God would always be changing. So being secure in that belief gave me the courage and the confidence to embrace the twists and turns, the stumbling and uncertainty of what I would come to call journey faith. The courage to be true to oneself and remain within the Catholic Church, I believe, is intimately linked to your experience of God. We have had an experience of divine mystery, divine love, that did not fit what we were taught. We experienced God within us and trusted that divine love would always be with us, regardless of the dominant paradigm of church teaching. So this courage is also needed as we face into our impasse. From 1977 to 92, I worked in Washington, D.C., as you heard, at Network. And I cannot take credit for Nuns on the Bus. That's Simone Campbell, the later national coordinator. But I became involved with many of the movements of that day. It was a heyday in Washington, D.C. for Catholics and people of faith working for justice. And so the justice, a commitment to systemic injustice, really became my expression of living the gospel. And I had great experiences during that time. In 1994, I was elected to the leadership in my own congregation. I'm telling you this because of a certain incident that happened while I was serving on the presidency of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, which is the conference of all the leadership people in all the women religious congregations, the vast majority of us. And it was a time that Pope John Paul II began a crackdown on religious who served in public office. 3 marvelous women were forced to make the decision, do they stay as elected public officials or do they stay in their congregation? It was not a choice. It was a horrible moment. It was also the time that I think many of you are familiar with New Ways ministry. Okay, Bob Nugent and Janine Grambuck just were being investigated, the kind of pressure, people saying this is not a ministry for religious to work with the gay community. So each year in the presidency, we'd go to Rome, and we had to go talk to the Vatican congregations. And it was the year 2000. I was a sitting president then. It was most significant for me, and this is what I want to sort of share with you. It was a year following the great outcry from U.S. religious to the Vatican. Many women, men wrote to the Vatican saying gay ministry is an appropriate ministry, and then would sign their name and say, and I am gay, or I am lesbian. Well, needless to say, that got them a little worried, Rome, and that it upset them greatly, what I say. And we knew this would be part of our agenda. Another issue was the ongoing issue of women's ordination. And Joan Chittister, does that name ring a bell? Yeah, a great woman. She was invited to speak at the Worldwide Women's Ordination Conference in Dublin. And Rome told her general superior, no, she can't go. Tell her she can't go. So this was on the agenda. And this was really an issue more of authority, because is it Rome supposed to tell the sister, or is it actually the general superior and the congregation's rules that will make a decision? But the final one was an interesting one. It was the major superiors of men, their conference, their leadership came with us to Rome on these visits. And they had the issue about a mixed community. Now, a mixed community means there are ordained priests and there are brothers who are not ordained, okay? And the question was, brothers were not allowed to hold any office of authority unless every one of the ordained men were deemed incompetent. Now that is a technical term in Roman language, but I just love to say it that way. Okay. So homosexuality, women's ordination, and the right of brothers to hold positions of authority were on the agenda. We raised the issues of women's ordination and ministry for the gay community was very appropriate for religious, but that all fell on deaf ears. The final item, the right of brothers to hold positions of authority, was discussed in such a way that it startled me, but it awakened me to a transformative moment. Not that I didn't know this before, but it became so clear. So this is what happened. They raised the issue, and this Monsignor, longtime member of the dicastery, or the congregation we were visiting, stood up, red-faced, short, pointed his finger, and wagged it in front of each of the men. Would you want to take an order from a brother? Now, in front were priests and brothers, okay? To a man, they said yes. Thank goodness. Now, did it change anything? No. But for me, it was, as women religious, we had been back and forth with the gay ministry work and also ordination, but this was transparent to me in terms of a line of separation. The Vatican believed that one's authority came from ordination and not baptism. Clearly a difference. If they could not accept a brother to exercise authority within his own congregation, as long as there were ordained men, whether they were what he would call capable or not, competent or not, what did that say about the priesthood of believers? And what did that say about the rest of us? So what became clear to me was that there was one church that continued the monarchical clerical system and all that accompanies it, and another that had begun to live out of the priesthood of believers, integrating the insights of the past 300 years within the faith. We didn't just hold different opinions, and this is important. I think this is what we're experiencing today all over. We held different worldviews. It was much different than simply a difference of opinion. Our consciousness about who we are and what we are about as church has developed differently. We looked at the world through different glasses. We were at an impasse. There's a quantum physicist, and you'll see he's old. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I had that little click here. Is that about engage impasse? I'm sorry. Did it abandon me again? Okay, it's supposed to be a picture of Max Planck. Oh, did I miss it? Ah, he's so cute, huh? He's one of a quantum physicists at the turn of the century. And he wrote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And if you think about globes, how many times do we think of the world and what do we see? Continents, lines, countries, divisions, separation, right? Then we get pictures from outer space. What do we see? One beautiful planet without divisions, without demarcations, a connection, interconnection. It's the particle wave theory in quantum physics. Everything's a both end. It's a particle and a wave. Everything is energy, dark matter, dark energy. The Enlightenment, which taught us how to observe everything as real as only that which can be measured, is being complemented and challenged by quantum physics. It's a new way of thinking and a new consciousness. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that experience in Rome shaped then my address I gave in 2000 to the leadership conference at the assembly. So to about 1,000 women that were there, I listed how the church had investigated and dismissed by the Vatican the women religious. And at that time, many women were being dismissed in their seminaries, if they were on pastoral teams, and other questionable ministries that the Vatican deemed not religious enough. And so I was inspired by Connie Fitzgerald's article, and some of you might have heard her name. She's a Carmelite, cloistered Carmelite from Baltimore. And she wrote extensively about how impasse is like the dark night of the soul of St. John of the Cross. It's a mystical journey. It's that incredible entering into your deepest self to discover your God self, and from there to respond to the issues of our day. And so I shared that with those assembled, basically to say that all the ways we know how to respond to those impasses in the Vatican and to things on the Hill, at that time it was the Iraq War, it is truly needs to come from a much deeper place. We need to imagine new ways of responding that's consistent with who we are at our deepest self. And we need to do that in a communal contemplative space. So that I knew that the ways, and I hear, that we responded to the church and the social justice issues of the day no longer worked. We had to imagine possibilities from the very core of our being. From the place where we encounter divine mystery, it had to come from contemplation. And so the contemplative experience offered another way of entering the breakdown of societal structure and dominant worldviews, of engaging impasse. It can create possibilities that could affect the transformation of not only self, but societal structures as well. So that realization called forth in me to found that Institute for Communal Contemplation and Dialogue. And never, ever, when you actually start an organization, ever use such a long name. It is impossible. So the initials hold it, ICCD. And so many people have gone through programs in which they've tried to deal with the impasses in their life through a process of the transformative power of contemplation. And so that's this other book that's out there, is A Crucible for Change, which relates that story. Some people you may know, Mary Hunt writes for it, Simone Campbell writes for it, and a number of other women religious. So I believe we are facing again into the impasses that we have yet to imagine. Some of you might have been at Brian Massingale's Dignity speech in DC. He did an excellent job laying out 2025's threats to us, that the document, as well as the Trump administration's. So if you haven't heard his talk, please go online and it's excellent. So I chose not to move in that direction because I think we all know the threats before us. And it will have to be, what we are testifying to the various worldviews that we are experiencing. I think that is what is happening today. We have, through the time that the human consciousness began to develop, various stages have happened. And they now are clashing because we've not learned how to appreciate earlier stages and earlier values. So we are facing, I think, a more difficult time than even 20 years ago or probably 1969. People are going to be reacting because they're threatened, and we're going to need people like ourselves who have come to grips with some of these things and are able to respond out of love. And so it will demand courage and, true to our experience of God, divine mystery, and the gospel, that the transformative power of contemplation can help us do that. So being true to who we are, being true to have the courage with the community and the courage to face our impasses, I want to move to saying why I believe contemplation is critical to your next stage of the journey and the need to really take care of your inner life. Today, contemplation, that word, is often used in mindfulness. I'm sure you know mindfulness, meditation, and truly all of that is terrific because people are beginning to understand the importance of just quieting and silencing oneself. And truly, it's healthy. Even if you never get beyond mindfulness, it's healthy and it's great for you. But when you, as a person of faith, engage in that contemplative process, similar to the mystics, then you really are entering a very deep place, and a place where I believe a lot of us are and need to go even further and deeper. As Catholics, sad to say, you probably didn't learn about you learned about contemplation was contemplatives, people who were sort of hidden away and never came out and prayed. However, there's a real both and. It's an interior journey and it's an exterior journey. It's as you deepen in your own understanding of self, you awaken to new ways of seeing the world. The way you look at things change, then the things change. And we begin to see in an either or way rather than, a both and way rather than an either or way. So it's really now part of our mystical tradition. Some of you might know the name Evelyn Underhill. She wasn't Catholic, she was Episcopalian, I think, but she wrote a marvelous book in 1911 called Mysticism, and she made the claim that it is the birthright of every Christian to be a mystic, something that we've just been somewhat deprived of till more recently. And Karl Rahner has that great phrase, the Christian of the future is going to be a mystic, or he, she will be nothing at all. It's not enough just to give creedal assent to creedal statements. It has to be that experience of the divine. It has to be where we root ourselves. So I believe the future needs people like us to respond out of love to whatever happens in terms of the polarities that continue to exist right now. To respond out of Christ consciousness, really. We used to say putting on the mind of Christ. It's really entering in that consciousness, Christ consciousness. And contemplation can help us learn to do that. So what I want to do is to talk a little bit about contemplation, how I'm using the word. But I know it's not new to you. How many of you would say you have like a contemplative practice? Great. How many of you would say you have something you do to feed your inner soul? Marvelous. Okay. So here, let me just go through, and if you do have contemplative practice, then just listen to this. I always learn something new every time I talk to myself about this, so hopefully you do too. So contemplation is a form of prayer that invites us to encounter divine mystery or divine love. Over time, it awakens us to who we truly are and how we want to be in the world. And the over time is important because it doesn't happen immediately. It really is like if you have a spiritual director, it takes time to find. It's like a glacier, huh? You think you know the tip, and it's much deeper. And contemplation is a direct experience of divine mystery. Unlike usual prayers, which are formulated for us, or we formulate, which are good, okay? I'm not saying those are bad at all. It's just another way of praying. Unlike meditation, you're not asked to use your mind. You're not asked to use your emotions. It's a non-discursive form of prayer. You're really trying to sort of become empty, but empty in a fullness. And I'll say that it's a fullness. And when you experience it, then you know what it is. But it's really trying to get yourself to hold your attention. Because what you're doing is you're creating a space from within to encounter divine mystery. And over time, we create that space. And it becomes the source of the transformation of a truer way of being our healthier self. You know, and today, the ego self, I try to avoid those words sometimes because they mean so many different things to so many different people. And you need basically all of it. It's just that when things go to the extreme. And by becoming our healthy self, we put on the mind of Christ. We put on Christ consciousness. And this takes time because we think we know who we are. But you know, we really are shaped by so many different forces. And I'm sure you know this even greater than I. What our culture tells us, what our family background tells us, what our religion tells us. And Robert Keegan, Harvard psychologist, calls that our constructed self. And the constructed self is what we have, and we think that's who we are. It's part of who we are. But as you deepen, as you go, and you start to see what are some of those areas where you always are triggered, what are some of the needs you have. If you have been in therapy, you go through this in another way. This is another dimension of that kind of coming to one's true self, your healthy self. And I think you've begun that change already. You had to look at your sexuality in light of the culture that you were born into and the time. You had to start to deal with that inner work and saying, okay, I'm not that anymore, I'm this, and claiming it. And so it's a process of kenosis. Remember the song of the Philippians? Jesus kenosis, self-emptying, trying to discover who you truly are. And so the contemplative practice, it helps us in that letting go. It's always a letting go process. It's a dropping down more deeply to see one's emerging self, one's truer self. It's opening ourselves to unconditional love. I mean, what if we really were taught that in the beginning? You can't earn love, and you can't lose it. It is there. We have to awaken to it, nourish it, understand it, see how it's challenging us. But you don't have to earn God's love. I mean, my goodness, wouldn't it be amazing if we grew up with that? And it opens, so it puts on the mind of Christ or acting from Christ's consciousness. And in that opening to divine mystery, there's a potential. It doesn't always happen, but there's a potential to see in new ways the reality around us. It's a potential to begin to develop your consciousness in new ways. They say today that our neurons we're being retrained. To think in a both-and way needs new ways of thinking. It's not an either-or world anymore, as Descartes presented to us. So, but for lots of people, that's impossible. You're either male, you're either female or male. It's an either-or world. And so all of this needs to be looked at. And sometimes, as you deepen your inner work, you are also awakening a new way of seeing things. And so it invites us to see an increasingly both-and world. And one of the ways of describing contemplation is taking a long, loving look at the real. And I love that. It's a new way of seeing. Some of you may know Ivone Jabara, the Brazilian feminist theologian. And one time I was at something she was giving, and she said, people say, I say pray, and they go like, pray, and their heads go up, you know. She says, we should go pray to God and look around, that truly it is, the real is in front of us. We don't have to look, we just have to find a new way of seeing it. And that's again what Max Planck and the quantum physicists say. And so as we begin to take that long, loving look, we will see the world differently and want to respond to the crises of our time out of love, not out of anger or fear or survival. It strengthens the courage we need to stay centered, held by that, think of it as a magnet within you, a magnetic power of love deep within us. And for this happens, we have to cultivate it, to engage in contemplative practice. And one has to do that because creating the space within us is not usually taught to us. And to tell you, it's not easy. So that's why we practice it. So one of the things, let's see if here we go. Okay, is that it needs to become fully present, is that yes, to the moment. Now we sang that song this morning, remember? Present to the now. But think about how often you're not present to the now. Even right now, you might be thinking, oh my heavens, can't she stop? Or, oh my, isn't it time for a break? Whatever's going on in your mind. Staying present is not easy. And that's part of, how do you stay present to that? That's all we have, all we have. We don't have the past, we don't have the future, it's the now. And certainly living in the culture we do doesn't help that at all. And it takes time to develop. We also try to create a silence that is in and of itself full. Now, some people hate silence. They can't stand it. It's like they have to have something going on all the time, all the time, all the time. And I don't mean to judge that, but I would invite you to try sometimes little bits of just silence. It doesn't have to be frightening, and it's not empty. It actually can be quite full. There's something about that dropping down and fullness. And finally, because I mentioned before, contemplation is a non-discursive prayer. It's important to quiet yourself so you can let go of thoughts, words, and any mental distractions. There are many ways of contemplation, but in every tradition, every major religion, there's a mystical component of contemplation, and there's always one that emphasizes silence and sitting. And I think it's important that if you don't already do it, to try it, and just to see what happens as you sit in quiet together. And so we're lucky because two men have brought to the Western Christianity some ways of doing this that should, if you're Eastern, if you followed the Buddhist tradition at all, this is very popular, to follow your breath. And John Main, who some of you probably have heard of, he's a Benedictine, he brought forward this Eastern practice of meditation, but he added the idea of a mantra. So some of you might remember Maranatha. This is way back. But it would be on the in-breath, Maranatha. Or Jesus, in-breath, mercy. It's a short phrase, not one that gets you thinking about, wonder what Maranatha meant in the Greek, in the original Semitic. No, that won't work. Because what you want is something that will simply keep your breath and you can come back to it. It's like a placeholder I'm going to use in the next one, but you just return to your breath all the time, in and out, in and out. And you pay attention to your attention, A-T-T-E-N-T-I-O-N. Whenever something comes and distracts you, you put your attention right back to the breath. Now, Thomas Keating changed that a bit, and he did centering prayer, which I'm sure is a familiar term to many of you. He used the cloud of unknowing. And he developed that for the West by saying, find a word or let the word find you. A short word. Again, not a word that stimulates your emotions or your thinking too badly, but sort of a neutral word. And it becomes a placeholder. It's like an intermittent windshield wiper. So you start, and you're breathing. Everybody starts with breathing. You know, we have to breathe. So you breathe, and then you say your word. My word for the last, well, actually quite a long time is trust. So now I don't do it on the in-breath. I used to do just the in and out breath, like the Eastern prayers, and I switched about 15, 20 years ago. But to breathe, and then say the word, and then you let the word go. So there's a difference. You let the word go until you start to see a distraction again, and then you say the word, and then you let it go when you're back in clearing. So it's like a placeholder. And in this case, Thomas says it's the intention. We set the intention, I-N-T-E-N-T-I-O-N, that we are willing to be consenting to that divine love working within us for our transformation and the transformation of the world. So those two I have found very helpful in terms of a method by which you get into that space of quiet. And what is a distraction? It's really anything. It's that itch on the nose. It's, oh, that seat is so uncomfortable. It's also, I hated this. I've always hated this. I don't know why I even sit here and do it again. It's anything like that. And what Thomas Keating says is, the 4 R's, all right, don't react, don't resist, don't retain, just return to the word. Now, the retaining, I have to is my, what do you call that, Waterloo. I start, wow, I think I should tell them this afternoon. Okay, this is good, this is a good idea. I just let me finish this idea before I go back to my word. No, you go back to that word. Keating has been told that someone said, 10,000 times, I sat there for 10,000 times I had to say my word. And he goes, 10,000 times you encountered divine love. So you can't lose. You know, it's the intention. Or he said, even if you think Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to you, tell her to come back. So, you know, you got to be serious about this. Is not to fool around. This is more important is to get to that spaciousness, because we can all pretend we hear things, right? We've all heard things in prayer. Sometimes legitimate, sometimes not so much. But this is an attempt, again, to just make yourself spacious. So actually, what I'm going to do is invite you. Let me just check something. Oh, good, okay. We're going to sit for about 10 minutes, okay? Maybe 7. I'll watch and see. So I want you to get, if you can, get nothing on your laps, please. For some of you, this is old hat. Now, if you can sit up straight, that's good. But everybody's hips are different. Everybody's, you've all got some problems that you got to honor. Your body first. Your body will tell you. The body wants you to do this. So it'll tell you how it wants you to sit. Then find a place for your hands, because that's always, what am I doing with my hands? And so you've on your thighs. You often see in the East, third and thumb. That's another posture. You might just put they say non-dominant hand in your dominant, but find some place to rest your hands. Okay. Find a place for your head. Don't arch it too much or go too far because it will hurt. So just sort of steady front. Your gaze maybe 3 to 5 feet in front of you. You can close your eyes. Now, I just have to say this. The Spirit will do what the Spirit wants in there, the mystery, the divine love. So if you fall asleep, it's okay. However, if you snore, I am inviting the person next to you to feel free just to nudge a little if it gets too loud, okay? Because that would be, otherwise, that is a way of calming yourself. So take a few deep breaths, and we'll choose, all right, you're going to choose which mantra. If you have a practice, do it. If you don't, choose either the breath with a mantra, or just your breath, or the word, Thomas Keating. But set the intention to be open to the working of divine love within you for your transformation and the transformation of the world. And I'll watch the time and I'll call us back. And we'll just simply have a picture of the globe in front of us, okay? Now simply bring your awareness back to the room and take about a minute just to see how was that for you, sitting not just alone but together in that quiet. I'd invite you to stay in kind of that deep stillness for this last part of our time together here. It's becoming hope for the future. I was in the previous parts, I wanted to say again how important it is to believe in who we are and our experience of God, divine love, divine mystery. Our faith journey is entangled with all the rest of our experiences and our entire life. Everything is interconnected. That you have found in Dignity a community to travel with as you face into challenges and impasse is an incredible gift. Because what we do and how we are makes a difference in this chaotic moment. You know, too often, and I'm sure you've been caught in this too, spewing out the same kind of disgust with what's going on, creating still that toxic energy. And what we're learning is that energy goes out, and if it's toxic, it's toxic. If it's healing, if it's loving, it is also going to go out to the greater world. We are always more than our individual self in what we do and say. And contemplation can awaken us to our truest selves, our healthiest selves. And when we can act from that inner space, so when that person comes up and starts to malign you, however it is, if continuing that magnetic place of love in your heart, can we respond without blame and shame? Can we respond? We can respond in ways that are compassionate and courageous. We can respond from love, and we can imagine new possibilities. I really think we continue to being challenged to imagine a new way, not just the either or way. We've got to find some of those. And so I'm playing with in my own mind an insight from Cynthia Bourgeault that some of you may recognize. She is an Episcopalian minister and is considered to be a modern day mystic. She taught with Richard Rohr in his school down in Texas, and she also was a colleague of Thomas Keating. I think she brings a real amazing insights to her work. She writes about the conscious circle of humanity and the cosmic centuries. So you might want to be thinking about like a communion of saints on earth, okay, when you're thinking about this. But she writes that a cosmic century is one who offers intercessory prayer. Their entire body becomes, okay, well, we can leave it. Their entire body becomes a lightning rod for the energy of divine compassion. So sort of picture that. Human yearning and divine blessing ebb and flow wordlessly across this sacred meeting ground in deep and a purifying exchange. The planet, she says, has always been held in its orbit by these solitary sentries who take on this great work. Their work casts a circle of protection around our fragile and beleaguered planet. They signal when danger is near, as sentries never sleep. Contemplation can awaken us to a heightened reality. It calls us to stay awake, to get awake. And most people walk through their lives half asleep, if not fully asleep. How do you wake up to this reality and to who you are? I imagine as communities of sentries, we stand alert, ready to signal when danger is sensed, both far away and immediately. We would give a wake-up call to all of us who fall asleep to the complexity of our times and the changing reality. How many people do you know don't even want to look at what's going on? It's just too difficult, it's too complex, it's too overwhelming. I imagine us alerting each other to what we sense needs to be challenged and needs to be supported. And we're rooted in gospel values so we can stand on firm ground and speak out of our moral authority. We act out of the energy of divine compassion as we write, educate, engage in nonviolent protest. And as a sentry is also like a guard standing at a point of passage like a gate. Perhaps we could be a gate that we can open wide to move freely between worldviews and beliefs, but which we may quickly close when hatred and violence try to gain the upper hand. Somehow that image of a cosmic century and the thought that we can become communities of centuries eases sometimes the discomfort in my heart, knowing people are standing alert and as allies, as dignity, whatever groups we belong to, sensing and giving out what we need to be aware of and what we need to do, alerting us to dangers and possibilities. And so to leave here, I was thinking to all different places, some which will be safe, some unsafe, after you leave this beautiful gathering, and in need of protection or warning. And I propose that maybe we can be cosmic sentries for each other. And part of that is just remembering who you are at each moment and why you do what you do and who is the I that is doing it. It's remembering who you are, who we are. And so I'm going to invite you to write an affirmation. So if you have do you have a pen, maybe? Now you got if you have a pencil and paper. So that when you come, we've got to practice. I might say, I love to compassion, and then I am so, I only can use probably bad words here, someone I live with because they haven't done something that I like, but it's trying to remember, who do you want to be? And so it's a pretty simple formula. It's who am I choosing to be in this moment? Any moment that is a signal to you that you start to feel triggered, who am I? Take that moment of pausing and remember what you're going to write. And the formula is this. Reflecting on who you really are, who are you choosing to be in your daily life and work? So for instance, the formula is I'd say I am Nancy, one with all there is, and I stand for integrity, justice, love, and joy in my work and life in service to all. Okay, it doesn't have to be long, but make it real. Make it who do you want to be when you leave here alone or with someone whom you love, and go to a place that might be unsafe or safe, and in the months and years to come, who am I? And when I'm getting ready to respond, can I remember and recall and give out that energy of who you are? So I'll give you about 2 minutes. I want you to write that down. You're going to do something with it. And I'll test and see if you're all finished in 2 minutes. But just write however you want to, but don't write a whole paragraph or anything, right? Just a little short on words here, if you can. And then I'll tell you how we'll bring closure to our time together. I am and I stand for in my life and service to all. Does anyone need a little more time? Just raise your hand. Okay, how about another, do you think 30 seconds or so? Would that be enough? Another half minute? I'll check. Let me just test again. Anyone still need time? All right. Would you now take out your phones? Now, would you go to your camera setting and reverse it so you see yourself in your camera, okay? And laugh, because I don't know about you, but every time I look at myself in that camera, I think, oh my gosh, is this what people see? And I just cringe. So get over it now. Just keep looking for a little while. Smile at yourself. You're a very good example, Daniel. We can look around and see all the threes in the crowd. Oh, yeah, that looks really good. Or, oh, I better fix my hair. All right, you're not going to take your picture. All right. So now I want you to get back to sort of a quiet space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a short little prayer of Juana de la Cruz Vázquez y Gutierrez. Now, it's not Sor Juana. She lived 1481 to 1534. She claimed she was a man and God changed her into a woman in womb. The church allowed her to do sermons, and she talked and prayed with great fluid gender imagery. And in 2015, she was made venerable. Can you believe 2015? So it's a little short prayer, she is quoting a mystical revelation she had and quoting Jesus. And then I'm going to tell you, so those who like to know what they're doing before they do it and never say, okay. And then what I'm going to do is have you take a couple of deep breaths, and then I want you to say into the mirror your affirmation. We'll do it all together. It'll be a cacophony of sound. The cosmic sentries will be getting strengthened. But you look at yourself and say that prayer, okay? Are you willing to do that with me? I know it probably sounds nuts. Okay, so quietly, let me just pray this prayer. And all those who seek in me a father will find in me a father. And those who seek in me a mother will find in me a mother. And those who seek in me a husband will find in me a husband. And those who seek in me a bride will find in me a bride. And those who seek in me a brother or a friend or a sister or a neighbor or a companion, likewise will find in me everything they desire. Couple of breaths. And now say your affirmation, I am, the whole thing, to the mirror, to yourself in your phone, please. All at once. 1, 2, 3. Stay looking. And the Sufi poet says, you are the mirror in which God sees God's self. You are the mirror in which God sees God's self. Now the ad. No. Thank you.
Sister Nancy, thank you so much. One quick aside, you know me, when I was a Dominican, I was the one running around with my habit, getting my rosary caught on on corners and all that stuff. One night I ran into the chapel and there were about 5 Dominicans with their cowls up and it was dark and they were contemplative and it was like God hit me with a 2x4. Thank you so much for sharing that contemplative life. It's so important, especially in my work at FEMA when I don't even know if I have a job, but thank you again. Your words really brought joy to everybody. So we're going to do a little quick adjustment to the schedule, and now to do something totally different, we're going to do line dancing in the next room over. They even set the stage for tonight, so that's really great. But Sister Nancy would love to talk to you if you're willing to stay and yeah, if people have questions, please feel free to stay. If you really want to do line dancing and you can't get over there, just come see me. Maybe tonight I can fit in maybe a half hour after dinner before we start all the dinner stuff, and I can show you some steps.
You mean we have to learn before we can do it tonight? We have to be
No, not necessarily. Some people don't like to be prepared, so.
like you.
So line dancing with Daniel next door. We'll regroup here at